Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Comics Della Morte, episode 91. And we got a new guest, Anthony Stokes, for Intrusive Thoughts. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for your representative shouting up to get you on the show. So,
No, thank you so much, and you worked with me to get this, make sure we get this done today. So I appreciate you.
oh, no, not a problem. So, before we talk about your comic and everything, start off what made you fall in love with comics, because I know in your description you were first a screenwriter and then you transitioned to comics. What made you want to do that?
Absolutely. So, truth be told, I failed as a filmmaker, and I feel like this is a story a lot of people go. It's really expensive. It's crazy expensive. So I just love storytelling. Really, I would put storyteller, but that sounds kind of pretentious. You kind of have to tell, like, you got to put some information, right?
Yeah,
So, and I still screenwrite. I still have aspirations to be a screenwriter.
awesome.
I love dialogue, right? Dialogue is my favorite thing. Like I'm a huge Tarantino fan, a huge Aaron Sorkin fan, huge James Gunn fan. So it's comics, the medium, you can't hear dialogue. And I don't know if it'll scratch the movie itch I have, but I just love the freedom that the medium presents, and I feel like we're kind of in a renaissance for indie comics, or comics in general, but indie comics specifically.
Oh yeah, because like we were talking about before we went on, everything is mostly like superhero stuff, but
Hmm.
the indie comics, I'm just seeing more people in the indie string trying to bring horror back as a big hitter. Like even the TV show Creep Show, that was first a movie series, then comics, and now it's a TV show. Every week, or not every week, once a month, they're coming out with like a new line of Creep Show comics that are kind of based off of the episodes from the TV show. So I'm liking that. I'm seeing that more and more.
Yeah, this is definitely. I think it horror lends itself to or comics leads itself to horror. Either one. I don't know. I'm not really. I'm sorry. I'm tired. But no, it's a great genre because excuse me, medium for that, because one of the advantages is, like, when you see an image, it sticks with you, like it's stuck. It's so in that regard, I think it's really strong. It's a strong medium for horror as well.
Yeah, because as you as a writer, you could like typically with the superhero comic, you get an idea what that's going to be about. But like I say all the time, it's like with horror, you could have a slasher horror, you could have a psychological, you could have a sci-fi. There's so many subgenres of horror that you could get into if you don't like the other ones.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So, you're doing the screenwriting and now you're into comics. When did you like really start like taking it like, okay, I want to start doing comics as my career? Like, how many years was it when you decided that?
So I I think 2019 was when 2018. Well, 2019 is when I really considered making a comic book. 2020, I really started writing them, and then 2021, I started working on. I broke ground on them. So it's
Okay.
been about 3 years. Yeah, 3 years, I would say.
Yeah, and during the pandemic, it probably helped you to really hone down your skills because a lot of people couldn't
Yeah,
do it.
yeah. It was that kind of thing of, like, what else can you do but hunker down and make tell some stories.
Awesome. And I know on your Instagram it said Decay Comics. So
Mhm.
tell a little bit people about like that, and then we'll go into your Kickstarter that you have now.
Absolutely. So the K is like a modern take on Frankenstein, right? It's like super gritty. It's a guy comes back to life, gets killed, wrong place, wrong time, and he gets revenge.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's just this really, like, gritty comic book that it was my first comic book. I leaned into the being the new, because I mean, especially, like, we're talking about horror, that's sort of the appeal when something looks kind of grungy, or like lower in, like, you think about Blair Witch Project, you think
Yeah.
about Paranormal Activity. Like, they did a lot with less. They in the lack of budget actually works into the aesthetic. Now, I want to say lack of budget, but the lack of production value. Let's just say that it lends itself to the storytelling, and I hope that's what happened with Decay.
Yeah. And I see, like, do you have the same artist that you got for this book, or with Decay and Intrusive Thoughts, where it's separate artists?
It's a separate artist, so the benefit to having two separate artists is that I can work concurrently. So, for instance, I finished Intrusive Thoughts issue 1 while Decay issue 3 is getting done. and then I'll start on Truths of Thoughts issue 2 when Decay issue 5 is being done. So being able to have 2 different teams is actually super helpful.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, when you were doing the screenwriting, like, how long did you go to schooling for that?
Man, I didn't go to school at all, man.
Oh,
I'm like,
hey,
yeah.
hey,
So
that's the best of us, you know.
I'll give a very brief kind of like history. So I always loved movies. I always loved stories. My dad was a big movie fan, so that's kind of how he loved sports, and I wasn't into sports. I'm into sports now, but he wasn't into sports, and so we love movies. You know what I'm saying? That's what we would do. We would watch movies, and Denzel movies in particular. You know, Training Day was our favorite movie.
Oh, hell yeah, that's a
Yeah,
great
great
movie.
movie. Yeah, great movie. So I watched Superbad the summer I'm going into high school, right? So I'm a freshman. I
Okay.
watched Superbad, and I'm like, this is amazing. It just blew my mind with what you could do with the medium. Not in not like in an avatar way, but just dialogue, right? Like I hadn't heard dialogue like that. And I think being at that age, it really had an effect on me. And then I saw Inglorious Bastards. This
Oh
is
yeah,
2009. And I was like, oh shit, like this is like, and again, it's the perfect time I think to watch a Tarantino movie because you're still developing your taste, you're still developing your sensibilities for what's good taste or bad taste, but it just blew my mind. So that was in high school, and then I just started. I just want to be a screenwriter. So from then on, I just watched movies. I watched video essays. Video essays. I used to watch video essays on my break, and maybe without realizing it, or maybe intentionally, I kind of gave myself film school across that time, and I started writing. So no, I really pride myself on the fact that I don't have any formal training really, but so I'm a little rough around the edges. But again, I like that sort of thing, and also it's kind of driven my philosophy on media fiction because I'm
yeah,
like I wasn't instructed how to do things. So for me, creative freedom is so important. So
yeah,
I really don't have a lot of when sometimes you talk to somebody, right? Like, and they don't like, I would say I have like a really latent good writing ability, right? But when you talk to somebody, you can hear when they're just echoing something they heard in class,
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's some kind of like, it's like, the all two characters should never talk the same, but it's like, all right, but if you watch like a Tarantino movie, saying you like, you'll notice the characters do have a rhythm
mhm,
and a flow to how they talk. So that's the reason why we go to film school, right? To be like
yeah,
Tarantino, but your man's the characters they talk kind of similarly, So that's just like giving me my philosophy behind screenwriting, and I think that philosophy is better served in comics because you don't have to answer anybody
yeah.
in indie.
And and that's the beautiful thing about comics is taking, you know, m- two media's artwork and then dialogue and making it into something beautiful. And
Yeah.
especially with horror comics, there are parts where you don't need a lot of action. You could have the artwork do its job, but you're
Mhm.
still having to write out that scene. So when you were getting these artists to work for you and everything, like, was it harder for you to like, okay, I can't add so much dialogue in one panel because it's just going
No,
to
you
take away from the artwork?
So I'll give myself credit. And I'll give somebody else credit. I sent them I sent them a script, like a TV pilot script. And I said, what do you think about me? Like changing this into a comic book. And they said, brother, it's too much dialogue. It's great, but it's too much.
Yeah.
But I also understood going in that I think that kind of reaffirmed what I was thinking is that this is a different medium.
Mhm.
Like I knew that. Like I didn't want to be the guy that comes into a new craft and you just kind of disrespectful and not even that, like that's the most basic thing, like, right, you think of like there's less dialogue and it
Yeah.
takes up literal real estate on the page, whereas a movie is mostly comprised of dialogue, especially if you go to like a Tarantino or an Aaron Sorkin. So that was definitely a concern.
Yeah. Well, it's also like if you read like the 1950s and 60s, like horror comics and stuff like that, there'll be like a long rectangle panel with a lot of dialogue. But with comics too, if you're going to have a lot of dialogue, it has to flow with the story. It can't just be
Right.
there. because you just want to try to cram everything and keep on. Like you really have to make a purpose for it.
Yeah, and
So
it takes a, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, but yeah,
no, go
you're
ahead.
absolutely right. You have to consider all this stuff. And for me, I like to have I actually so I'll give myself credit. I like to go the opposite. I like to have minimal dialogue. Like I'm like I just want to overcorrect because it's for me it's easier to add than to take away, right? Because if I have
Exactly.
like 2 pages of dialogue, right, and somebody's like, all right, you get 5 or 6 lines.
Mhm.
Now this is tricky. Now if it's like, okay, you can add a line of dialogue. It's easier to add a line of dialogue than take away like four, you know.
Yeah. Mhm. Exactly. So with that and everything, with your comics decay, how amazing but difficult at the same time was it working with the artist? But like, okay, the artist I don't know if he came to you saying, "Hey, I'm gonna have to do something different with this panel because you're asking for this type of work, but then there's so much of the sense." Like, did you have to like butt heads a little bit when you were first doing that, or was it a lot easier for you?
I mean, to be honest, to be 100% honest, it's I mean, depends, right? Like it
Yeah,
truthfully depends. Um, I think it's more so of like this is what we're doing. The artist is always open to suggestions and they might try new things, but really we the writer or the in this case the writer is the one who kind of dictates like the
gotcha.
overall, right?
Yeah,
And
so
I
you weren't
think
doing it the Marvel way.
no, I I had to break everything down. And I think that's also important because if you were to try to do the Marvel thing, right, and you're not giving your artist like a 50-50 or a split, you're not giving them any back end. You're essentially asking them to be as invested into the work as you are, which I feel like is really irresponsible.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, like, with my comic, I don't have artists. I do everything myself. So at least
Mhm.
I know what it is. But it's one of those things, if you don't have like a history with someone, they're not really going to understand your vision. So, yeah,
Well,
that's key.
it's also it's a job for them, you know, and they may
Yeah.
enjoy their
Hmm.
job. You know, I enjoy my job, but ultimately I'm not going to have the same emphasis. Like I'm not going to have the same enthusiasm as my boss, for instance, unless you want
Yeah.
to compensate me. And then I, you know, well, so that's just kind of like my line of thinking.
Yeah. Awesome. So, you know, for anybody, we're gonna have to do the show for only 30 minutes. He has another going on, so we're just gonna get straight into intrusive thoughts. Talk a little bit about that besides what I had in the description for the a premise of what it is.
Absolutely. So it's about a kid who's an orphan. So he's got enough problems, and his sleep paralysis demon bites one of his classmates, one of his school bullies. So it's kind of like that's the inciting incident, and that opens up a whole can of worms, and then it just gets crazy from there.
Yeah. What I really love about the front cover and then throughout the book is that his mind is like a snow globe or
Hmm.
like that, and the creature is inside that. And it's like most of the time you're looking at a snow globe because it just brings you to a place where you want to be
Yeah.
or not. And it was just a beautiful like theme that you're trying to set there. And then the whole thing it like shatters and the creature, yeah, just really, really good. I definitely rate this as a high like 9, I would say, just because the
A high
way
nine.
it's yeah, just I mean, I rate it as a high 9 because I'm looking at the artwork and the story.
Hmm.
And I always like to I don't know, I just see a lot of comics that are so similar, like we were talking about with movies. So, I mean, that's how I feel. I'll have to maybe it'll be different when the series go on, but I definitely rate a high 9 just because that's I feel that it was like telling a really good story and there was parts that really drawed you in.
No, I
That's just
appreciate that very much. And I actually I wrote the story with DNS in mind, my artist, and he's super good. So he's great. He's phenomenal. I appreciate that. No, the snow globe is again all right. So it kind of goes back to what I was talking about, like trying to use real estate because everything you try to communicate in a comic book, it costs money. Like it costs literal
yeah.
money, right? So it's like, all right, it's a very simple metaphor. Like you get the metaphor instantly, but sometimes a metaphor isn't about sometimes metaphors are to like reveal something or be a twist, and sometimes a metaphor can be too obvious. I feel like this is in the middle, but it's just simply a way to effectively communicate what's going on.
Yeah, and it's like besides supernatural horror in a way, it talks about, mental illness
Hmm.
aspect in its way too. And it was just great where you wanted to discuss that topic and embrace it, but you wanted to add like the whole supernatural thing to it. And that's why I love the whole hourglass, because our mind is fragile, and then a event that could happen in our lives could really break that and shatter us from within inside.
You said hourglass instead of snow globe,
Oh, snow globe, yeah,
but
that's what I meant.
I do like that. I am working on a sequel, so I do. I maybe I like that as a little motif. You
Well,
might
yeah,
give me a good idea.
the hourglass, you could think that too, because our mind is just pouring, and at some point we are going to have a moment where our minds is just going to stop and break down because work's just getting stressed to us. So yeah, just
Well,
I like the metaphor.
yeah, it's interesting. So this is, and I'm thinking. So intrusive thoughts, is really about adolescence, right? He's a teenager, and then I have another idea for a sequel series called Invasive Thoughts, and this is an exclusive. This is that's going to be more about being middle aged, right? More about being kind of not like in your late 20s, like early 30s, and an hourglass could represent like a fear of mortality.
All right. Can you hear me? Because
Yes, sir.
my other mic for some whatever reason went out, so I always had this on standby. You know how it is, probably with StreamYard.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So let me see. All right.
All
Can you
right,
hear me
can you
now?
hear me now?
Yes, sounds great.
All right.
Okay. So, all right. Let me get this other
One out. Sorry about the. All right, there we go. Yeah, gotta let StreamYard know about that.
Okay. Sounds like there's an echo. Is the other one playing in the background? Yeah, the second monitor.
Remove it. Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's great.
All right.
I can see you.
All right, that's better. Oh man.
Okay.
Yeah. So with everything, with the comic, I have the link. I saw the link was loaded for the first issue. So do you have a link for the other ones? Like the other
So Intrusive
Kickstarter?
Thoughts only has one.
Okay.
Only has one one issue right now, and the Decay has three different
Okay.
issues. So the press kit link has multiple, but you can pull up the. Do you need the issue one link?
I have it in the description. I don't have it below, but I can screen share it. So
Okay.
yeah. While we're doing that, just well, do you want to tell about want to come up with this idea for the book in the first place?
I don't remember. It's crazy. I really think it came from a place. So Decay was very literal. everything that happened in Decay was really happening, and I want to do something metaphorically. So maybe I worked backwards from that, perhaps, but I really don't remember. I worked on this book very quickly, and it's kind of blurred together the process.
Oh, yeah. It's like I didn't know if it was like a passion project for you. Like you've had this in the back of your mind for a while.
No, you know what? I really try to avoid those because you never know what can happen. Like I'm immensely invested in this series, but it's also like
Yeah.
you just don't know. You don't know what could happen, you know?
Mhm.
Like it's so I try to stay pretty. I don't know. I appreciate them, but you know, I don't understand. It's like maybe like I'm trying to compare the relationship. Like it's like you appreciate it while it's there, but like you know that I'm not great at. I'm good at visual
Yeah.
metaphors, not literal metaphors, but I think you get it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know some people, they have the story as a kid, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. Can you see the screen? Is it pulling up?
No, not yet. There we go. All right, that's the Kickstarter.
All right. So everybody, this is the yeah, that's the Kickstarter. For everybody, the Kickstarter, when is this gonna launch exactly
The
for the
24th,
Kickstarter?
8 p.m. Eastern.
Okay, so that's next week. So everybody
Yes.
get notified for the link because like I said, I've read it already, but I'm loving it and I have to get a copy of it, a physical copy.
Ooh, okay, okay. Are you following the page though? Is the question.
Yes, yes, I am.
Okay, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, I'll throw in this I'll throw in one of these for you because
Yeah.
the Tales from the Crypt homage.
Yeah. So we're getting close to having to close up. So, you
Mm-hmm.
know, if you want to say anything else before we get into the questions.
No, I think we covered a lot. Like I said, it's about mental issues. It's different. You know, I really try to make
Mhm.
something that was unique and that really stood out because I wanted to stand on the market, and I feel like we did that.
Yeah. Awesome. So now with the questioning, first question, what is it? It could be like brand new, it could be old, but what's one of the horror movies that you really fell in love with as a kid?
As a
Or like,
kid,
okay, this horror comic, I mean, this horror movie, I it just really stuck to me, not because it scared me, but then different, and I can't get enough watching it.
I would say the Saw series. I would say the Saw
Okay.
series, and I think it was I don't know if you mean by a kid as in like under 18 because I was not watching horror as I was a
Yeah.
baby. But
Yeah.
again, we had a conversation. No, we were talking about like during like what I was watching that really. I love
Mhm.
the Saw movies because they were different. You know, they were truthfully different in the dynamic, and they weren't really scary. They were just gory. You know, that was
Yeah.
fine. And also, it was so many of them. You know, it was so many of
Mhm.
them. It was almost like the Harry Potter of horror, like because they would come out every year. They would come out every year around the same
Yeah.
time,
Mhm.
and I just love them. And I'm gonna be honest. Oh, and Final Destination. Final Destination. It's a two-parter,
Okay,
and
yeah, yeah. Mhm.
that's where I get kind of my morbid. I get my morbid writing style, I think, and my anxiety, frankly, from Final Destination and Saw.
Nice. So, you know, you really love those movies, but when it came to like 80s slashers, like with Freddy, Jason, like do you actually have a favorite? Because some people they're like, I never got into that type of genre. Some people are like die hard, like, oh yes, this is my favorite killer from that time period.
You know, it was before my time, and like I said, I
Mhm.
think by the time I was watching horror, I was watching like the more recent stuff, you know. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really don't. I mean, it would be through a tie between the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, and
Mhm.
I like Freddy. I wish I had a better answer.
Yeah.
I wish
No,
I had a better answer for this.
it's definitely one of those things like, you know, you were born in the 90s, I was born in the 80s. I got a chance to go to like Blockbuster where it was
Yeah.
still a big thing, and like, oh wow, I don't know what that horror movie is, but the front cover artwork is amazing, and I just had to get it because the plot and the artwork was just selling to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, like I was just at the tail end of that, you know, at growing up
Mhm.
in the 90s. Like I was just a very, very tail end.
Yeah. Okay, now when you were talking about Decay, I don't know if that's your favorite monster movie, but do you have a favorite monster movie character? Like, are you diehard Frankenstein or the others?
We're going even further back than the 80s
Yeah.
hard the 80s
Yeah.
slasher. Frankenstein. And listen, I'm
Mhm.
gonna be 100% honest. I've never seen a universal horror movie.
Man.
I do want to watch The Invisible Man because that one looks really, really funny. But the concept of Frankenstein, just it being obviously I did a homage to it, and just I read the
He's more
book.
of a victim than a monster.
That's true. And I read the graphic novel of the book by
Yeah.
Frankenstein. It's also interesting because it's almost like that was almost like the original Twilight when you
Mhm.
read it, but it's so bleak. It's
Yeah.
so sad, it's so tragic that it's like I have to say Frankenstein.
Yeah. Same with me, because with Frankenstein Alive, which we reviewed on the show as a sequel from the comic novel
Mm-hmm.
that Stephen King did, I love the fact where he's like using his hands, and I don't know if it was like a violin or a piano, but he's like, do I know how to play this instrument, or is it the person whose hands are sewed to me knows how to play it?
And that's
So
what I love about
yeah.
that era. It's like really smart. It's
Mhm.
really, really, really smart. You know, that's great.
Yeah, most definitely.
That's a great. Yo, I gotta work that into a story. That's genius.
Yeah. I'm surprised, if you ever wanted to go back to Decay or a spinoff, you could definitely do it with that.
You just gave me a decent idea. You definitely, you giving me the hourglass was great. I don't know if you heard me, but I was saying that could represent like a fear mortality, and then the
Oh yeah,
taking over
exactly.
somebody else's body parts. I really like that.
Because I mean,
Man.
that's how all of us, especially us creative art creators
Yeah.
who are in the indie world, we don't care exactly about how big our life is out with comics. We just want to tell our story,
Shit, I don't know about that, man. I want to be
Yeah.
I want to be the editor
Oh, yeah,
of Marvel.
yeah,
No,
yeah, yeah.
No, I hear what you're saying. No, 100%.
Yeah. So with that, now you said you love Midnight Summer. What really made you love that movie?
I loved it because the atmosphere and like the way it's the pacing, the tension of it. It's a slow burn, but things are happening. It's a gorgeous movie. It's here's why I can give you a really good like writer question. Like, so Get Out, right? Get Out is is an amazing movie. The problem I have with Get Out is that the opening, you have to tease the audience, spoils the rest of the movie, right? So somebody gets kidnapped, a black dude gets kidnapped. So when you're watching the rest of the movie, you feel for the character, but you also, if you take out that scene, right, this could be a comedy, this could be a drama, this could be a black comedy, this could be anything. It could be a horror movie, it could be anything, a thriller. But when you put that opening at the beginning, it is squarely a thriller or a horror movie. That's all it can be at that point. And Get Out's an amazing movie, and I think that happens a lot. But Midsommar, the opening character, and then it doesn't. A worse movie would have had somebody in the festival getting murdered or something like that,
Yeah.
But this was entirely about the main character. It's amazing.
Awesome.
It's an amazing movie.
Well, sadly, it's 8:30 already. 30 minutes goes by fast.
Yeah. We'll have to do this
But
again.
it was great to have you on, though, like to just pick your mind and just get to know you a bit. And like I say to all the people, you're more welcome to come back on whenever you have a new Kickstarter, or you just want to shoot the breeze with other people who are like, who love horror and love the genre and just want to shoot the breeze.
No, this will be a regular stop for my campaigns. This is great. And as well as
Yeah.
if you want to talk about like the modern horror as well. I'm always down.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone who's going to watch it after it airs, or anyone who's watching it silently. But I hope you all have a great night, and I'll see you all next week. Bye.